All right, all right, all right. This is where we start looking at how beliefs are actually built. And this is a really important distinction for coaches because when a client brings you a belief, it can sound like a story. It can sound like an objection, it can sound like a fear, it can sound like a limitation. But underneath the words, beliefs usually have a structure. And once you understand the structure, you can start to influence it. There are two types of belief structure. The first one is a cause and effects belief. This is where the client links one thing to another. If this happens, then it means this. For example, if they don't have the money, then they can't join my program. If I post online, then it means people will judge me. If I fail, then it means I'm not good enough. That's a cause and effects belief. The second type is a complex equivalence. That's where the client says, this means that, this equals that. A simple example might be something like, it's raining, so I need a jumper. But in the coaching world, it might sound like, well, they didn't reply, which means they're not interested. My launch didn't work, which means I'm not good at this. I felt nervous, which means I'm not ready. And this is where coaching becomes really powerful because the client is not just telling you what happened, they're telling you what they have made it mean. And we've got to remember that humans are meaning-making machines. And we connect things, we create rules, we build associations, and then we start living as if those associations are reality, but they're not always reality. Sometimes they're just beliefs that have been structured in a certain way. So join me as we go through this ProCoach training together and listen for some of these distinctions. Listen for this distinction. The content will change. And what I mean by this is like the client will be different, the problem will be different, the situation will be different, the story might be different, but the pattern is often the same. And so when you can hear or you can listen out for the belief structure underneath the story, you stop getting lost in the story and you start understanding how the belief is built. And once you understand how it's built, you can help the client loosen it, you can help the client question it, you can reframe it, and eventually create something more empowering. All right, let's jump on into it. This is the two types of belief. So when you understand structure of beliefs, the next thing you can do is start asking yourself, how can I influence the structure of that belief? You guys picking up what I'm putting down when I say that? So I love, and we'll go into this together during Masters together, right? We'll get into like 16 reframes together. I've got a really nice way to share with you how to remember 16 reframes so they're not like really difficult patterns. What I mean by that is some people get really caught up on the science and they try to make it sound like so much harder than they need to. Do you guys know what I mean? When like they just sort of get caught up on they're like, oh, this is like really complicated. And so like if you've ever been in like a sales training or if you've done other sort of language trainings before, they use patterns like if I do X, then will you do Y? And Y doesn't equal X, X equals Y only if blank. And it's like, it's really hard. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just not that smart. Like it's so hard to integrate and it's so hard to embody and it's so hard to use. So I'm like, how do I break it down? How do I simplify it? How do I make it really easy to use? And then how do I go find that thing or how do I build that thing? Let me introduce you to a concept. It's called iconography. Iconography. And so when somebody is speaking, and I appreciate that this is like sort of software that's running in the background. I don't share this with you to like, scare you or like overwhelm you or anything like that. But I just share this with you so that you can start thinking about structure of beliefs. Okay. The first belief structure is a cause and effects belief structure. And the way that it's represented is if, then, means. This is why I spend like a whole day on 16 reframes together so you can understand how the beliefs are forming. But it's like, if this, then this means that. And so I'm mental mapping as I speak. Yesterday we spoke about, as I coach, pardon me, yesterday we spoke about taking notes. In the past, I would take notes because people are like, you're already speaking like this. Your clients are already speaking like this. It's just, if you don't know the framework, it just seems higgledy-piggledy. It just seems all over the shop. It just seems like brand new every time. But it's not brand new every time. It's same, but different. Hear me when I say this, and maybe write it down. The pattern is the same. The content is different. The pattern is the same. The content is different. And so because I know the pattern and I can recognize the pattern, the moment I hear the pattern, even though the content's different, I'm already like ahead of the game. You guys picking up what I'm putting down when I say that? And you will be too. So the first pattern is if then means, and it's a cause and effects pattern. The other pattern is called complex equivalence, and it's represented like this. And it's this equals that, or this means that. Okay. For example, I've got a friend, and every time, without fail, every time it rains, they go, every time it rains, they go, it's raining outside, means I need a jumper. And they go and get a jumper. No, it's not even cold, right? Like they don't need the jumper, but they're like, oh, it's raining outside, better go get a jumper. And so what they've done is they've made this complex equivalence that like, well, this means that, well, because there's clouds or because it's raining, then I need a jumper. And think about that. Like we have complex equivalences for everything. We also have like if then means for everything. Like I think about it like in the sales context. Like before, we were talking about like coaching. We're talking about sales. Like if they don't have the money, then they can't pay for the program, which means the conversation's over, which means it's done, which means it's whatever. But you can change it, or you can think about it. Well, if they don't have the money, then I need to suggest that we brainstorm, which means we can get creative. If they don't have the money, then and so now we can start thinking, well, what are some more empowering beliefs for myself? I share all this with you for two reasons. Later on, we're going to go into reframing. Do you need to get this complex? Probably not. What's a jumper? Sorry, mate. Who's this? Bobby? Yeah, it's a sweater. It's a hoodie. It's a thing. I've got to translate all my Australian for everybody. I apologize. If you get caught up, make sure you get it in there for me. That'll be great. You guys don't call them jumpers? Come on. Maybe that's where it's at. Joe, I have been bullied for a really long time about putting together a book list. So I'm not making any commitments to it. But I'd be more than happy at some point in my life to put together a book list. I'll put all the recommendations on there for you, because yes, communication, as in like former NLP stuff. Yes, relationships. Like there's some really great people out there to study for relationships. And if you're interested in relationships, also of course like down the health line as well. And then of course some spiral stuff as well. But my book will be at the front of the spiral stuff. I'm just saying. All right, we're finished. Sometimes like beliefs are like incomplete, meaning like people just say like, well, if this, then that, but they're missing the meanings. So just remember that like people are meaning making machines. Once you recognize that beliefs have structure, that's what opened me up to like, well, problems probably aren't, there's probably not as many problems out there as people might think.